Welcome to another video book review from the London Centre for Spiritual Direction. We're delighted that you're joining us today as I speak with Mary and Charles Hipsley about their brand new book, hot off the press, Reimagining the Landscape of Faith, with the subtitle, Essential Pathways for Spiritual Growth. Since Mary and Charles are both spiritual directors, they have much to say to us as a community about the book. So I'll just be asking them a few questions. Now, I have known Mary for almost 50 years because we were theological students together in our very, very early 20s. And latterly, I've also got to know Charles as we are colleagues on the Encounter course that as a community you will be very familiar with. So a very warm welcome to you, Mary and Charles. Do you want to introduce yourselves briefly, and then we will talk about your wonderful book?
Okay. Thanks, Maria. So my background is really in technology and business, but about 15 years ago, I joined the London Institute for Contemporary Christianity to try to bring together faith and work and set up their faith centre, their workplace centre. Since then, I've trained as a spiritual director and now work, as Maria said, with her as the lead tutor on year 2 of Encounter.
What about you, Mary?
Yeah, well, as Maria's already intimated, we're theological students together, and that's really shaped my life ever since. I've taught religious education in schools and lectured as part of a theological college, independent college in Oxford. Recently did a master's degree in spirituality, Christian spirituality, which was absolutely fascinating and probably became the basis for this book because of what I wrote my dissertation on. And since then, I've been involved in sort of helping to train mentors, what you would call spiritual directors. In our church, we use a different term, but it's much the same sort of ministry. I'm part of a bereavement support group because I realized it was the same kind of thing. You open up a space, you ask good questions, you allow people to express things and to sort of grow in that experience. So that's something I've been involved with. And we've also run a group for faith strugglers because, as we'll find out as we go on in this interview, that's not unusual, but it's not always sort of, acknowledged very easily in the church. Yeah.
And there's one thing, thank you, Charles and Mary, for that lovely introduction. It's always good to get to know members of our community a little more in this way. I love the way that you have in your title, you've used the word reimagining. I quite like reconstruction as well, for those of us, who struggle and often find we need, like you say, essential pathways and new ones. Now, coming to your book, and I'll just show again the cover because it's oh gosh, is it all right? Yes, so inspirational and invitational. And I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but I love the cover and it feels a good start. But I just want to read something that one of your reviewers has written about it, because they put it much better than I could possibly do. And they say that this book is a refreshing and profound exploration of spirituality, combining insights from scripture, theology, psychology, and of course, cartography. Now, cartography makes my heart sing. Being Portuguese, we love maps. We are born explorers. So the metaphor and the actual use of maps is a wonderful tool for your book that immediately, again, beyond the cover, drew me in straight away. So even if you're not particularly good at reading maps, it doesn't matter, because in reading Reimagining it, you will feel a really strong, a much better sense of your journey towards God and the way that can be mapped. So first of all, Charles and Mary, what was the inspiration for reimagining the landscape of faith?
Well, if I can start on that one, really, yes, talking about the journey, our experience as spiritual directors has been that a number of people come for direction when they're feeling perhaps a little bit lost on their spiritual journey, a little bit bewildered or disorientated, not quite sure where to go next. So we wanted to put together a resource that would help people to navigate confusing times, and perhaps a little bit more than that, to discover, well, what's the opportunity in those confusing times to grow and to move forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, what I found is that lots of Christians also sort of, using the cartographical metaphor there, get to the edge of their map. So it's not that anything's gone drastically wrong, but they might be asking themselves, is this all there is? Which is a central question we've posed in the book. In other words, they want to keep growing, but the map seems to have been quite limited. They don't really know how. So what some of them even say, there must be more to the life of faith than this. So the book very much worked from that place, which is, here's the stuff, or here's some of the landmarks that may not commonly be acknowledged, from the pulpit. There's more than mission and evangelism and worship. There's actually more than that. And of course, you'll have discovered by reading our book that, some of those things are just as crucial as landmarks to sort of navigate yourself by. So that's really what we were exploring.
Yeah, thank you. So whether you get exploring the boundaries, really, whether of a map that perhaps is not working, that you can't read so well anymore, or one that you can still read, but you have a sense there is more.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. And who do you hope the book will benefit?
Well, really, as per what we've just been acknowledging, there's sort of two sets of people. It's designed for anyone who has come to the end of the map that they perhaps have inherited, they've never really looked at, they need a little bit more evaluation and therefore reimagining. And what we've also found is that this is a prime time that people actually find a spiritual director. Sometimes they don't know it exists, but they kind of stumble upon it because they've kind of run out of resources to just sort of make it up themselves. And as regards that, it occurred to us that quite a lot of Christians don't know what a spiritual director is, they've never heard of it, or they certainly don't know what the ministry represents. So we also wrote the book as a sort of introduction, not a kind of technical introduction, but a kind of by the way introduction, illustrating what spiritual direction is and pointing disciples towards the crucial nature of self-understanding, the fact that perhaps faith isn't meant to stay the same in their whole life, and that we all need to expand to a wider frame of reference. So, spiritual direction covers all of that, but I don't always, maybe spiritual directors don't know that that's part of what they offer. And so we were trying to be explicit about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, just to mention, it's a good resource for spiritual directors themselves.
Yes.
Because it offers and it asks a lot of good questions that can help their directees to explore, how did I get here, if you like, and how have I been formed through my map and my belief. What sort of a person has it made me, and then to look forward to how they might grow in maturity and greater freedom in their walk with God.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry, Charles, carry on.
Both people who might come for direction and those who offer direction. Yes,
absolutely. And I love the way that you phrase so much, just about all your chapters as questions. It feels very invitational. Also for us as spiritual directors to find ways perhaps of framing the inquiry that our directees come with, right? In a way that is really opening up and making it possible for them to become explorers again, perhaps, to reimagine their journey. So the metaphor of maps and cartography, I've already said, it makes my heart sing and is clearly central to the book. What was the inspiration for that? Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, it actually happened, as we say in the book, when we were walking around a particular exhibition of maps at the Bodleian Library here in Oxford. And I don't know. It made me understand, probably for the first time, that we tend to think of maps as just an absolute definitive recording of, the topographical reality of any given space. But actually, every single map on display, and any map that we use, even SatNav, is a work of interpretation. It's sort of the end product of selection and emphasis, because on your SatNav, you're a very small bit. It's not the whole map, it's a very small bit. So I realized very kind of soon after that it's very true of our faith maps as well. We assume that what I believe is just the truth, or because it says so in the Bible, without realizing that all of that is the end product of interpretation, selection, emphasis, etc. Our particular map comes from somewhere, shaped by Christian tradition, cultural, wider culture, influences like people that were significant in our lives. And it's also shaped by who we are as the map readers, our personal experience, our personality, our preferred way of processing life, our core motivations. So all of that goes into what we assume is the same map that everybody holds. And actually, that's not true. Everyone holds a slightly different map. And yet we decided to bring that out as a sort of, self-evident point, really.
Yeah, thank you. For me, maps are so important and often a very useful tool, as I said, quite often with a new directee, to invite them to map their faith journey. And sometimes later on, in terms of consolation, desolation, to notice those spiritual movements within their faith map. It's such a useful and very visual, very immediate tool for us. So inspired and very, very practical too, in bringing the metaphor, but also the actual reality of a map. So having said that, can you just tell us a little bit more about the core themes in the book? You have two main sections, so tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so as you say, it's in two parts. The first part is really about us identifying our faith map and what's shaped it so far. What have been the influences, whether they're Christian tradition, or culture and scripture. What have been the forces that have shaped our map? And alongside that, we wanted to also bring out that actually it's the reader themselves that makes a difference to how the map is read. So how does who we are as map readers affect how we read our map? So that's part one, as a kind of introduction. And then part two is about, so then how might we enlarge our faith map? It starts with sort of, well, where am I? And then what happens when I get to the edge of my map? And what happens in the wilderness? What perhaps might need to change? And as I said earlier, what's the opportunity there? Particularly around our perspective on, who is the center? Who's at the center of all this? Is it me? Probably not. If it's not me, then how might my perspective change? And how can I live from a more God-centric perspective? And we kind of end by looking beyond life on this earth as far as we can, and asking the question, how might that affect the way we live well in the present moment?
Yeah. In some ways, it feels like it's bringing the memory of the past with the hope of the future together into the present, isn't it? And let that begin to expand and to fill up our map. And often recenter it too, something that all of us need to do regularly. We can easily lose our true north, can't we?
Yes.
So that invitation is there for all of us, not just those who are perhaps needing or wanting to reimagine their faith journey, but for all of us. Wonderful. Now, you know that we are all about spiritual direction here in the community. That is our bread and butter. That's what we live for. So how might your book be helpful to us as a spiritual director community?
Well, I think we agreed together that not everyone knows what a spiritual director is, and unless you've had a director before, directly may not be aware of the map that the director is sort of leading them on. And they may not be
Yes.
aware, why they need to become more familiar with their inner self, why recognizing their feelings and desires matter, or how people grow into maturity. In other words, the psycho-spiritual journey that you guys talk about on Encounter. And the interesting thing is, we began using this material, Charles and I, both with our directees and in other contexts such as retreats, discipleship courses, this group thing for faith strugglers. And we realized that it was really hitting the mark whether you had known about spiritual direction or not. And so we found that it was helping provide, or our book hopefully helps provide conceptual understandings of things that spiritual directors are doing, but they might not explain what they're doing, if you understand.
Yes.
A framework for stages of faith, for instance, that
Yes.
kind of thing, and vocabulary to explain or express what is going on inside us. It's all designed to deepen the spiritual direction experience from either side, really. So that's why we were hopeful that it would be useful to both. But just speaking more personally now, I devote a whole chapter to my own dark night of the soul, because I realized that not many people were equipped at the time I was going through that to help me navigate that, to make sense of that, to help me see that actually that was in God's purposes and was all for spiritual growth. So it was very much, helping a spiritual director to recognize that, maybe to ask good questions, probe sort of what might be limiting beliefs or, kind of distorted maps, encouraging obviously a widening out of that faith perspective. So there was a lot of things that kind of came together in regards to how we think it's useful in spiritual direction.
Yeah, just to add briefly, it's also really helpful in fostering a more God-centered perspective, because we really underline the importance of moving beyond our sort of defended self-centeredness.
Yes.
And some very practical routes about how we might lay down our sort of compelling desires and offer ourselves more freely, more openly. We explore imaginatively, as I say, how looking beyond our own death may inform how we live. And all of what Mary said and those things as well are supported by prayer practices. So we do offer a few of those, not only, I should say, for the quiet place, but also how you might use those in sort of busy everyday life.
Yeah.
Take a row.
Yes.
It's not that other resources don't speak of these things, but we felt it would be good to bring this together under one roof, as it were, in a book that could be easily recommended to either directees or directors.
And that's exactly what I'm doing here. Really recommend it to you as a director, as a wonderful resource. It's quite a tome. So it's something to dip in and out of, and return to, actually, because there are so many good resources there. I couldn't take it all in one go, but I've certainly been curious with all these questions. They keep inviting me back into exploring more, which is wonderful. And that's what we do, isn't it? Asking good, inviting, open questions. So thank you so much for all the work, and also for your personal testimonies that come, in the shape of some of the stories that you share. Thank you for doing that, for your generosity of heart and mind, and the hard work of writing a book and getting it published. I wish you all the success, and I certainly heartily recommend it to us as a community. How can we get hold of it? Can we get it from Amazon? What's the best place to get hold of it, Charles?
The quickest place at the moment is directly from BRF online. It is on Amazon and Waterstones and other good bookshops. but BRF obviously being the source, you'll probably get it quickest
Yes.
by going
Right.
there.
So that the details will be below.
Yeah, there's also a website, Maria, just called Reimagine Faith Landscape.
Reimaginefaithlandscape.com. It'll give you some links to the online bookstore and a blog or two.
Yeah, the blogs just maybe act as a really good intro to the sort of things that we cover. So if you want to have a little taster, have a look at some of those blogs.
Wonderful. So a complete package. We'll make sure that all the details come in the description of the video. So thank you so much, Charles and Mary. It's been wonderful to connect with you in this way, and you know, God's richest blessings as you really put yourself out there. It feels like, you know, a real important offering in this spiritual landscape that we inhabit. Thank you
for having us.
Thanks, Maria.
You're welcome.